everybody, and welcome to another week of .p's Tryhard Tuesdays, where we learn to try a little bit harder. I am your host, the Grand Wazoo, and sitting here with me is a man who needs no introduction because I've given him all of them already. The Baron himself, the landowner, the man who leads them all into battle, none other than Flubb with two B's, the Grandmaster. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good, man. It's going pretty good.
Yeah. It's been, once again, a very fun week in Dota for me. I mean, I feel like the whole win one, lose one mentality is huge for me lately. I mean, I can't catch a break. But, I mean, I guess 50-50 isn't too bad, right? And maybe I have even higher than a 50-50 win rate in ways. But how's your week been in the game, man, and otherwise?
It's been pretty good. In practice, we've had to switch up our practices recently. So we're going on like a different schedule, and that's a little bit jarring, and we have to like figure it out. But we got to play a bunch because of it yesterday, and I got to do like two of my favorite things, which is Axe mid and Ursa mid. Oh man, I love playing my weird mids, man.
What did your team think of that? Of course, they drafted it, so it's something they wanted to do. But did it win?
Yeah, we won both of those games. I went Axe mid because they had picked up a very heavy melee lineup, and they didn't think it was going to go mid. They got kind of like tricked them into thinking it was going to go jungle, and they picked Juggernaut for mid. So you just right click the Juggernaut whenever he comes near the creep wave, and he's going to take spin damage for last hitting. And we had a CM on the team, so I was just like spamming Battle Hunger, and he'd like come up to get like a last hit or a deny, and then I would just attack the creep and then start attacking him. And
sounds like that guy got frustrated rather quickly.
Oh, it was beautiful. He was just like so pissed off the entire game. Like both the supports like rotated. They're like basically 3v2ing me because we had another support of an ours. I think Ursi came over to help me out at one point, and Fafnir at another point, and it's hilarious when you play mid. You destroy them so bad that they're like, oh, we have to give up our tri lane. It has to come mid now.
Sounds demoralizing.
Oh yeah, it is one of my favorite things about playing mid for sure is demoralizing the other mid or demoralizing the enemy tri lane, since I'm like a big ganker type of guy. So
or perplexing them. So if you don't know what you're doing, then how can they know what you're doing? Like tactics are just out the window. But it shows the flexibility of the game, and I don't mean that for your Axe. I just mean some of these crazy picks you can see mid that can actually win, but you don't think they can win. And so, like by having that unpredictability, you have a lot on the table. We both got a tweet from a Simon Power at Simon Power NZ, and he said, Flubb Dota and .p Wazoo. So after Tryhard Tuesday, I went and made a battle tree tonight and won. So good. And I don't think either of us thought. I thought it was like something to do with the battle cup, and so I was like, battle tree.
Yeah.
I was like, so like a tree of people that like fight each other to end up on the same team. But then I thought, oh yeah, we talked about tree ant battle tree. And this guy went and made it and won with it. And so that's good. I'm glad we're spreading that because Tree can be like a linebacker in the mid lane. And I didn't believe it until I saw it. And then he's just running, turning invisible between trees. And then he just hits you with a tree trunk to the face and you're gone. So I'm glad that we were able to share that with you, Simon, if you hadn't heard it before. And I'm glad you had some success with it. This is pretty much exactly what we've been talking about, more or less, is the unpredictability factor, the human factor that can be thrown into some of these lanes is it's interesting because people laugh at it and then they'll get crushed by it and they'll feel stupid because I did laugh at it and got beat by it and have been on a team where a guy just wrecked with it. So it's interesting.
Yeah, totally.
So Flubb, you said you switched. Oh, no, go ahead, man.
No, that's the thing is like you can get the right pick in the right scenario and it can work really well. Like, I mean, you were just what we're talking about with Tree, but it's kind of a similar thing with my other hero that I had mid, like Ursa mid. Like no one wants to generally have that situation. Like, okay, who are you good versus in that scenario?
What was your lane there?
I was going up versus a Meepo, and what you do with Ursa is in general, I always pick up an Orb of Venom, and I pick up a shield, a stout shield, and a Fairy Fire, and because you don't really need your mana, You can spam it out a little bit with spells because everything's so cheap. You get a health pot, and then you get one pooled tango. And I actually got first blood because we smoked around and killed someone. And if you get first blood and grab the rune, you get boots early. So if you get boots before as a horn spawns, and Orb of Venom as a mid Ursa, and they're a melee, they are getting nothing the rest of the game because you are just hitting them constantly, and you have the movement speed on them. You just build your movement speed items, and you just sit there and like, okay, if you're getting a last hit, you're gonna like pay for it and be down to like a fourth of your health.
It doesn't seem like it would be that good of a lane for the Ursa in a weird way to me. I guess, but you
gotta be hyper aggressive.
Can you attack in his net?
Yeah, you can attack.
Okay.
You can't.
Okay, you can't cast.
You can. You can cast in net. You can't move.
Can't move because there's some other abilities in which the net. Well, what is it that you can't? Oh, I'm just thinking of a different ability. Never mind. And that's Maiden.
You can't. You can't attack in Maiden's thing.
I mean,
right.
yeah, that's a different spell entirely. But so yeah, that is actually a pretty good lane because he just runs up to you and hits you, and if he starts to do the burst, you hit your ult, right?
Yep.
So you have the damage resist. So that's good. That's pretty good thinking. That's another hero that's had a rework recently, and a slew of other heroes like Phantom Lancer, Bloodseeker, etc. That just didn't fit the game. And so they reworked it to kind of be something that now works. And now he's just a wrecking ball, Ursa. Do you think the hero is more viable now than he's ever been?
I think that. I mean, it's hard to say that he's ever been because
let's say in the past couple years, like I don't know, I play him and I feel like he's good, but I just don't know how viable he is.
I think he is more viable in the past like couple years for sure. He's more viable now than he has been in the past couple of years. I think that the way that the items have kind of like stacked up, I think that he just needs like one tiny buff in like the next patch, and he will be a terror. I think that he is still a very situational pick, and he is very strong versus these like tanky heroes. Like if I am going versus a Timbersaw, I like Ursa a lot because you can just, I mean, it doesn't matter. Reactive armor, if you have it or not, you're going to be taking shit tons of damage with that Fury swipe, you know? It's just, it's to counteract people that are getting, like, having these super aggressive, weird strategies. I think Proud said it the other day. It was either Proud or Ursi or Fafnir, someone said it. They told me, if the enemy team is picking weird, I have full faith that Flubb will pick just as weird and be able to win his lane because of it. So take that with a grain of salt.
The freakier you get in lane, the better off you are, huh?
Yeah. So if someone's doing something weird, I got them. But if they're doing something like Invoker mid, then it may be a challenge for me.
Why can't you just get weirder on it? You know,
I'm trying, man. I'm trying all the weirdness, but it's
like go Slardar, dude.
I used to do
mid.
that. I'm gonna try to convince Proud here pretty soon of doing Slaughter mid, but we'll see if they go for it.
If you think about it,
he is, man. He's like, pretty decent.
He's got like things that a mid might desire, but
he can beat people to runes too with sprint, man.
I like Slardy.
He's fun.
A cool hero. He's ugly as sin, but good hero. His model is terrifyingly bad. But my week in Dota has been, much of what you would expect. The Sisyphean myth of trying to push my boulder 25 MMR up a hill at a time, and it just rolls back. Once again, lose the 25 MMR, and I'm back to where I started. But I'm a little wiser, although worse for the wear, sure. But I'm still enjoying the game immensely. I'm just playing less, doing a lot more work in a couple fields right now that are really interesting to me, including this, and as well as everything else going on. So it's hard to really play a ton, which is, a good and a bad thing I've noticed. Like I've heard a lot of guys, Mr. Blue, who used to be on the show, has a kid now, Baby Blue, and he talked about how he's actually playing way better Dota because he plays less. And I'm starting to see that effect. When I was playing a ton and fixating on it and it was what I did all the time for fun. And if it was going good, it was great. And if it was going bad, it was shitty. It's a lot better now that I have a couple games that I can sit down and analyze and be like, this went wrong because of this. It's okay. It's 45 minutes. I'm not going to play another. I'll go play something lighthearted and, think about it. And it's kind of brought back my my kind of hobbyist interest in the game, which is why I started it originally. I didn't start it because I wanted to be a competitive player or even necessarily a good one. I started it for the same reason, I guess old men build like model trains and planes and shit. It's like I was a hobbyist for the game. I looked at it and I was like, wow, that is a very cool thing. And you can drift away from that hobby mentality if you are one, and maybe even go back to it because I am. But I'm starting to discover again how like robust of a hobby it is in a weird way. It's a little tactician. It's a little RPG. It's a lot of things. And so playing less has actually been a good thing for me. Any news in Dota really that you feel is relevant and you want to discuss, Flubb?
Not necessarily, not right now. I do think that what you just touched on is important, though. I think that everyone at one point in time has that drive, that idea of what's going on, for themselves. They don't. When you get into a game like Dota, when anyone first starts it, no one actually goes into it and says, I'm going to be the best at this game because, you can make $1 million in it or whatever. If you're really going into video games to do that, then you're kind of getting into it for the wrong reasons.
Go to business school.
Yeah. Even if you're talking about sports, like if you're going into like football or, something like that, or like be like a pro tennis player or something, you're going to want to do it because, man, you're in love with the sport. You're in love with the idea of doing something. And a lot of people who are, like, really good at hobbies, like great craftsmen in general, like it was a hobby for them. And they enjoyed it so much and they kept doing it that it eventually, it eventually gave them the result of money so that they can do it all the time. But they would be fine if they could just survive off of that and do that while, like having a normal life like everyone else. It's not, they don't need that like gratification of a lot of money or a lot of prospects to do something. And that's important to always see. Like we're always trying to make ourselves better, but we're trying to beat ourselves. We're not trying to beat the system.
I like that you mentioned tennis because that's also a game where you're kind of, at least it's taught in like when you're learning tennis, that you're not really playing against your opponent, you're playing against yourself. They're just returning the volley of what you already volleyed at them. And so it's like a mirror, you know what I mean? Dota's very similar, but it's 5v5 on a very similar, you could look at the river like the net, and you're just kind of going at each other. And tennis has some of the most incredible dedication I've ever seen from athletes, to be honest. I've worked with people who've played a ton. I've never been any good. I always hit it too hard. And it's just like, shit, and that's my game of tennis. And but I enjoy it and I enjoy watching it. So I like that analogy because it's very similar in ways. If you're thinking about the kind of like philosophy we're putting out there, is that you're not you're playing against you're of course playing against 5 other heroes, but what you're also combating is that the things about your personality that are bad in a lot of ways, your impatience, everything else. And that game will remind you what you're weak in and what faculties you're bad in constantly. And some people can't handle that. I remember when I used to play Zeus and Sniper and like Bounty Hunter specifically when I first started, when there's no ranked, I would think to myself, I would stop and be like, getting triple kills and be like, dang, maybe I'm like a prodigy at this game. And I just don't know. And I'm just like way better than everybody else. And then like you come to find out I'm like average and in fact, probably below average in ways. And it's just funny because it's a game that makes you feel so powerful. And then the humility that then follows is so swift,
Oh, it's so swift, man. It's like kicks you to the ground swift, man.
And there's rare things in life like that I've noticed. At least like people seek not having that, being humbled. You know what I mean? They seek that. They don't do that to have fun typically. And so in that way, it seems somewhat masochistic, but it's not. Although it has ways that it's just like grating. It's not. You know what I mean? So that's my cold open for the week. Mark that off the list, Flub. Shoot, we're done with that. Moving on. What are we going to be talking about today? We've decided to talk about move speed. It's something we haven't ever discussed on the show, as far as I can tell directly. It's a general thing that is very good. There's items that are very good for that that we're kind of going to talk about a little bit. Not that we're going to do an entirely item-centric show, but it's important to talk about how you get move speed as well, I think. But Flub, I guess the most easy example to throw to you here to just start this off is it's an item we've talked about on the show, which is the windlace. Has this changed fundamentally move speed?
Yeah, most definitely. It gives you that extra boost in ganking in the beginning for the support heroes. There's a lot of times where people will kind of go like more greedier builds, and they'll get like a little bit less regen just so that they have the opportunity to like chase someone down at level 1 ganks. Actually, something we do on our team a lot is having Ogre Magi with Windlance, just being able to run down someone at rune spawn, because if someone tries to go for rune spawn, it's just like if you're getting aggressive on someone, Ogre running someone down, beating them to death is impossible to stop because he's so freaking tanky.
It's given a cheaper option to just when you would want to do something like that, you'd have to start with boots. And so you just grab the boots and the tango or whatever. And then that was limiting for supports, right? Like if your lion needs to buy boots to be there to stun, it's like you're probably shouldn't be doing that if you need to also get vision up in the courier and everything else.
But it's funny because boots have changed too, Wazoo. Like, I mean, you've been there. The boots used to be like 500 gold too. So also think of that. Like, they've made boots cheaper, yes, but they've actually made this new item that gives movement speed that's even cheaper because they're realizing
that's very, very good.
That it's that it's still needed. That this thing is needed earlier in the game.
It's so I think it changed early game movement speed in an insane way if you think about it. Just because there used to be one option and now there's multiple options, and there's ways you can plan around even the early game movement speed thing.
Mm-hmm. It's more of a commodity that is able to be bought earlier, like you said, but like it's able to be used in such a way that's like. It's almost like on par with consumables, because consumables are something that's generally are used for the early game, and the exception is TP, but mana and health are used at a lower level for like a consumable rate, and you can kind of argue that Windlance is almost like a consumable, where some people like to hold on to it for a really long time, but some people will just pick it up so that it is a thing that like they can sell later on, just so that they don't get ganked in the beginning or something. So
it's interesting. I wish it kind of was consumable. Like imagine if it gave like plus 15 on top of the normal as a burst for like 10 seconds. You get all that movement speed. So if like you really need to get away or something.
That's an awesome idea, Wazoo.
But then you're eating a wind lace. It's like you're eating lace, and I don't know.
Well, they should just call it like wind in a bottle or something, and just like just drink
cool.
the wind in a bottle.
Or a wind pedal, dude.
There you go. See, you should write for Ice Frog, man. Like tell him like,
Ice Frog, I know you listen, bro. Pull me on into the project.
Exactly. Get Wazoo, and I'll ride on his coattails.
My amphibious bro. No, he doesn't want my ideas, but that is a pretty good idea, I think, because then you have reasons to pick up multiple, turns it into a consumable, and it also gives you, it fits along with that philosophy of you getting the attack speed and stuff with the other leaf that you can then pop for a quick bit of health, but it takes it in a new direction. I'd like that. But, maybe that would make it way, way, way too good. And, but it still would be cool to be able to think ahead and be like, I'm going to be really highly ganked, and you pick that up anyway for that reason, but now it gives it a little bit of an edge. But this isn't the show to talk about what should happen. This is the show to talk about what is happening. And I think movement speed is very interesting because you even see it picked up on carries. In some iterations, mainly with the Yasha, you see that build into stuff. Some heroes pick up drums. Others even pick up the Windlace. I mean, you see even carries pick up the Windlace. That's how good of an item this is. And it's universally good. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that thinks that item's bad in any way, anywhere that I've ever heard.
Nah, movement speed
Is it
is
too
always
good?
a thing.
I guess.
It borders that, man. It borders that for sure.
Because you look at the very few items that actually build movement speed, and most of the time Windlace builds into them. You got the drums, and what's the other item it builds into? Yules.
It builds into drums. It builds into Yules. I think that's it. Yules and drums are the only two that I can think of right now.
And those items do stack. And so if you had a drums, a Yules, and a Windlace, they would actually all stack in your inventory, believe it or not. And then if you had the Yasha, of course, that would also stack. And so you just have crazy movement speed. But it's now something where you have a build path with that Windlace to take it and build the movement speed throughout the game, rather than waiting for the item to be constructed. I remember that always really sucked with drums, that you had to build everything to reap the benefits of that all the way. It was good to have the bracer and all that to be a little tankier. I remember that being nice, but at the same time, it's that movement speed earlier means it kind of opens up a whole new realm of viability for it. So I don't want to just do the Windlace podcast. That's not why we're here. But I think early on, it's incredibly interesting. I've been playing support and even picking it up earlier on heroes that maybe I shouldn't, but just kind of experimenting to see is this efficient if I just pick this up and grab this at the shop and just all this, you know what I mean? Because it is very good. And I would just build the Windlace on Wyvern or something like that early. But I don't know if that's considered bad. I'd probably do a lot of things that are considered bad. But what heroes do you think it is pretty good to pick it up on? And in what situations would you pick it up early game movement speed?
Well, it's definitely it's funny. There's old heroes that we had all these different qualifiers for heroes in the past, and some of them still exist today, nuker, disabler, carry, things like that. But one thing that never really caught on that I always thought was a thing was a chasing hero. Me and my brother, he's the one who showed me the game. We'd always talk about chasers, guys who generally had the ability to do constant damage and had the movement speed to stay up with it and were tanky enough to do so. So Doom was always an example. When you doomed someone, you would have Scorch Earth and you'd run alongside them, and it was kind of the idea that you would chase them down. You wouldn't just make them explode like a Zeus would. So I feel those type of heroes it works on. So Pudge is good, so you can use Rot to its advantage. It's really good on certain heroes maybe a Night Stalker, Spirit Breaker, because he gets damage based on his speed. There's certain things that are inherent within it, Bat Rider, getting that extra movement speed to move someone. Just that few extra units can be crucial in a team fight. And
are you picking this up typically super early on? Can you start with this viably? It is
not
good.
Start with it, but within the first 10 minutes with these heroes, I would get it. Probably with Pudge, if you're not starting with it or starting with Boots, you're playing Pudge wrong, in my opinion. If you're playing mid, that's the only way that it is acceptable to not have either one of those two items. But if you're playing a support roamer, you have to. Any support roamer needs to pick up Windlace.
And by that you mean at the beginning of the game?
Not at the beginning of the game.
So 8 to 10 minutes is typically where you want to be hitting the window for this upgraded movement speed. And
yes,
if you are a roamer, where what do you do to capitalize on that in the moment?
Well, if you're using it to capitalize on the moment, it's about getting the most last hits in a scenario. So for Ricky or for Bounty Hunter, they have this slow mechanic, and if you have the slow and a movement speed, it's about just getting more auto attacks in to keep reapplying the damage over and over. And most of that like early game win lance is for that. Whereas like if you're talking about like mid game win lance, or like
Windlace.
Windlace. Jeez, my bad. Not Windlance.
Windlance is cooler too, Ice Frog. Put that in the game as well while we're at it.
I did that when it first came out, and I haven't done it since then. But now I do it. So I don't know.
Wind pedal.
Wind pedal. Yeah, I want to call it wind pedal. That sounds cooler. But the heroes that you wanted on, like maybe even like an Earth Spirit or something, it's more important to generally get that Orb of Venom to like kind of help your other teammates out in that scenario, especially if you have like a slow to add on to it already. And that's taking away movement speed. So both are inherently like involved with the game, and having Windlace is very important because it can kind of amplify the things that exist already, or shore up the problems that you have. Like CM, for example. She is so slow, but Windlance kind of makes her...
Windlace.
Windlace. I'm doing it all the time.
It's ingrained.
Yeah, it's a part of me now.
Now I'm saying it. But I definitely pick up what you're putting down here. If you have a hero that completely relies on having to be one place or another very, very quickly, a la Pudge, I mean, if you can make it to that spot quicker and get the hook, it becomes worth it very, very quickly. If you can get there and throw the arrow quick, or if you're a Jug, if it lets you fog your enemy quicker by spinning and being able to have that extra bit of movement speed, it can be something that keeps you alive completely at a time where they don't expect you to be that quick. And this isn't really something that... It's a specific thing that we didn't really have to deal with before. I mean, sure, a player could start boots, but it didn't ever feel like that was an excessive bit of movement speed because everyone normalized to it rather quickly. With this, it's like from the get-go, you can have that advantage. And then by the time you get the boots up, you also have that advantage over them. And so it feels more... I don't know, it feels like that investment is paying off a little more to go into the attacks or the movement speed game. And I like that. I like that they're looking at this like a commodity, something that if you pick up and have an advantage in, you naturally are going to be like advantaged in certain ways. It's very cool to me. So how about building it, the Windlace? It's like you have a couple options. Like we said, you could go into the Yules or the drums. It's like, do you always have to build it? You said some people bank it and sell it. I mean, what heroes do you typically want to keep going forward with it?
The ones that generally want Yules are the ones I try to go for, because there's a few heroes that it works for drums, but generally drums is in a position where it's not very useful for what it truly does all around. It's kind of seen a lot of nerfs in the last few patches, and this just doesn't really have that big of a place. The only place that I really like it right now is on Batrider, and I would even argue sometimes it's really important to pick up a Yules on Batrider, especially if there's a lot of like silences on the other team to like prevent you from doing anything, or like to like get out of combos or certain things like that. And it's also nice if they have...
Let's clarify that as well to those at home that are listening but don't understand what that means. It might be a given to others, but a Yules, like say a Bloodseeker throws down his silence, if you Yules yourself up into the air or Yules yourself after you're silenced, you can take off the effect or just miss it entirely. So if you're in the air while it goes off, or on the way up, I suppose, you're not going to take the damage. But if you take the damage, you can Yules it off afterwards, and he won't be able to target you, and you can take the silence off.
Right. So it's a very utility use for an item, and one of the things that you can do with it is it is a single target item. So things like Lincoln Sphere, which is a bane for that hero, because there's no other ability that is a single target except for his ultimate, and everything that Batrider is based around his ultimate. So if there's a Lincoln Sphere on the field, you can just target someone with the Yules as you jump in, and then immediately ult them right after, so the Yules gets blocked and your ultimate gets through, and you can pull the person with a faster movement speed, getting them closer to your team.
Or if you're me, you can jump in and ult and then Yules and what? You know, I'm always like, how did that happen? But we all know how it happened. But Yules is a very interesting item. I'd like to do a show on that for our item of the week at some point, just because it's one of those endless skill cap items that I don't think will ever stop benefiting.
Yeah.
If you just know how to use it. It's like Armlet or something. It's like, or Force Staff or Blink. It's like, it's something that it's just always going to be good, I think.
Unless they change one of the aspects of it, like it not getting rid of a silence or something like that, I don't really see it going away
entirely. But
yeah,
imagine if you could use it on your teammates to take the shit off of them.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Or keep them out of danger, like when
because like die. Void, that may be a nerf to Void. Because like if you could do that in a chrono, like that would be insane.
Yeah, he's just like what, just standing there. But I like. I love Yules for Void. Anyway, it's like the second he chronos, you just blink in and Yules him, or Force Staff in, or whatever you are.
Oh yeah, totally. But
I
like
playing Zeus against Void for that reason, because you just blink in and like hit him.
It would be even crazier if you could do it on your teammates though, because then like Invoker couldn't do his rotation on that person.
Well, that's another one for Ice Frog. I hope you're writing this down, Ice Frog. There's a lot of suggestions. You listen to Reddit, or at least someone at Valve does.
This is we can make Dota better podcast.
Yeah, make Dota better again. Make Dota great again, dude. But it already is great. Game's great. You're doing a fantastic job. So there's a lot of heroes that you see that used to build drums that no longer do it, which is interesting because I'm used to see it as a staple item on carries like Sven and stuff like that, right? Just because the raw stats that you got were so good and gave movement speed, it gave you chase, it gave you the ability to really kind of like unlock that whole movement speed thing. And it was through a consumable item, the drums, you know what I mean? And so like by the time you were starting to kind of get to the late game where it doesn't matter as much and you're pushing and positioning is more important, the drums are running out of charges. But the stats themselves used to be very, very good. It's been normalized out now and the item isn't as good. It's more built when you need it, like really need it. I see it built on like CK and shit like that sometimes, and it's always kind of weird. I guess even the Ursa, no, typically you just get like phase. I've never seen it on Ursa, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. What do you think of drums and their applicability in the current meta?
I think that drums kind of has lost a lot of its steam because the one thing that it has going for it is that it is an item that has multiple pieces to it that can build up. And that is the popular trend right now, is getting the items that kind of give you stat bonuses, give you a bigger buff as time goes on, using that like incremental buffs to your character so that those ganks are prevented, whether it's because you have enough mana to use a spell in a situation to use something that's spammable, or to have enough health to be able to survive armor, what have you. Movement speed, like we're talking about right now, movement speed's such a great thing to get away from ganks with.
And like it's made fogging very interesting, I've noticed. Like I know phase boots have always been in the game, and so there's like that element of how fast could he be moving and then fogging me, but like guys just are quicker now. And it's hard to keep up, you know what I mean? Like when a guy wants to get away and he has phase and windlace and maybe that's it, but like he's just so quick that like the second you should have been able to get him, like you probably had one chance, but it was like a space of about 2 seconds. Whereas I feel like the window was kind of wider in previous metas without the windlace because you didn't have that quick and easy access. And since I'm so habituated to that movement speed back then, it's like now it just adds a new thing to the game. It's a new thing I got to learn and look for and be like, oh, he's gonna buy windlace and he's gonna be this fast, or he's gonna go for drums at this timing, or Yules, and or he's gonna get his phase boot, so he's just gonna be able to like dodge me at every point I shouldn't engage him. And so like looking at those things, it's pretty convincing how impactful movement speed has been on this meta. You know, if armor was the primary and illusions were the primary things, I'd say maybe illusions primary, armor secondary, and movement speed would be the tertiary thing that really have defined this meta and made it what it is. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Um, I feel like you kind of touched on it is that if you have like phase boots and windlance, it's almost like you don't really need to use drums at that point because you're already like plenty faster than most people just with those items. So I feel like what's kind of happened to that item is that there's other items that you can use to build up the pieces to, and the real great thing about drums was that it gave you that movement speed, and like kind of the stats were kind of like a bonus on the side. So they build other stat items or other things that are available stat wise for piecing something up, and then they
Yeah,
just
you
get
saw like the
that.
Sanjin Yasha a lot in conjunction with that item at the time because there was just such cheap raw stats.
Yeah, exactly. And it was all about stats and movement speed, and like making those more items available to get that sooner. People are just going to go down a different path and go down that path if you're getting it quicker and able to get the ganks faster and go put the game in a faster pace. I don't know about you, but generally every game that I've played, uh, I feel like it's really hard to see games go past like 50 minutes. Like they do go past 50 minutes, but whenever it goes past 50 minutes at this point, I'm kind of like, man, everyone's like pretty much stacked up to the brim at this point.
It did not
Whereas
used to be
like,
that way. I remember that. It's like
yeah, like
they've
you
kind
go
of
back,
given steroids to that process, right?
right, you go back like 3 years, I feel like, and man, I feel like 50-minute games was like, yeah, that's like, yeah, that's pretty normal. Like, yeah, if you go past an hour, that's kind of getting ridiculous. But 50 minutes games, yeah, it was a long game, but it was not unexcusable. Now it's like, man, this is kind of weird. This game should be over by now, which is both good and bad because like, if you lose a game, you're not gonna be like feel like you're wasting an hour of your life then. But I kind of feel like we're losing some of the elements of what Dota was a little bit. So
Which is to
I don't know.
say more of a deliberate process in which you saw that growth and it wasn't something super sped up. It kind of had a clearly defined early, mid, and late game, and you saw the late game items in the late game.
Hmm.
And I remember like you would never think about seeing these items at some of these timings that they get now with some of these heroes. It's insane, and I sound like a grandpa like back in my day, but it's like even just back a few years ago, it's like the game has changed so much. Like there were certain parameters on the game, right? It was like that you could only get so much movement speed in the items. You could only get so much attack speed. You could only get so much damage. But I mean, that hasn't changed too much. I mean, there's interesting items in the game as well, but like it hasn't changed compared to the other things, which are now really don't resemble anything like it. It's like they've just given you they tried to make itemization important throughout the entire game, and I think they succeeded mostly. But at the same time, it's like it looks pretty foreign to older Dota, and I can imagine it's much the same for you. Do you feel like it's been a good change or a bad change overall?
I feel like it's probably a good change. Um, I also think it's a change, and it's also a change in gameplay. I think that people are getting better and better as time moves on, and we've had like systems for builds, and there's help. And I mean, what we're doing right now, I mean, obviously on the podcast, we're trying to help people learn about this game and improve their game themselves. People are interested in getting better and trying to understand this game in every facet. Whereas before, it was more of a situation of, haha, you're a noob, or haha, you're a tryhard, or blah 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 blah. Like that was like kind of an illegitimate answer and kind of like a dumb answer to like people who are serious about the game. And now people like take it seriously and are tryhards. And tryhard is a phrase that's still thrown around, but nowhere near as much as it used to be.
Some people use it as dicks, and we don't want to do
Yeah.
that. It's like there are some people that are more tryhard than others, I suppose, but it depends on your definition of the word. And I kind of look at it in the old Day 9 Sean Plot sense. if you guys know who he is, and that's just kind of becoming a better gamer through the games you play, and that's really trying hard. I mean, many of us will not play in the international, although viewer, I think the world of you, listener, rather. I think the world of you, and I think you could go to the international. But when you make it, tell them it was your Uncle Wazoo that got you there and give me a cut of the money. But there's something about this game and just being able to look at every single facet of it and realize, although it looks as foreign as an alien spaceship with no like attached pieces and it all just looks like one fluid thing, like when you get down in the nitty gritty of the engine of it, it's like they're all interlocking pieces that rotate in interesting ways, and you can really spend a lot of time on each piece. You know what I mean? And so just to take general topics and talk about that, I think is kind of the purpose here. And for other tryhards, it might not be. I mean, it's a very interesting term for our times, I think. And we've never discussed it on the show, so it's interesting that you brought it up.
Mm-hmm. I just I feel like when I don't know, when people say the word tryhard, and it's kind of what drew me to the show in general is like, when people say the word tryhard, it always kind of irked me that like they were trying to use it as an insult. It's like, yes, I am a tryhard. That's like, why would you not try hard at something that you enjoy?
There's like tryhards though, and then there's like the neckbeard tryhards that are just like, what are you doing? Why are you building that? It's just like, cause I'm building it. Like, leave me alone, you know? But it's like,
it's true.
It's like there is a negative connotation to that just because we all know people that maybe need to take a breather. But hopefully we aren't those people. I know I can be, man. Like, to be honest, I can definitely let the game go to my head, and that's when I usually need to take a break and just like reset. It's like chess or anything else, you know, because like the depth is endless that like by the time you think you have all your ducks in a row, just like 4 other things pop up that you're like, I got to fix all this crap too. And then like, you know, all your ducks fall off the shelf, and when you're fixing those other things and you have to pick those all up and put them back, you know, I don't know. Like I feel like I learned things and I've had to relearn them multiple times in the game, but it's like, that's the humbling process, I guess we were talking about. But as for mid-game movement speed, these are the timings that you would typically be getting your other such items. What do you think? Like, do you typically take the wind lace? Do you carry it throughout the game until you're slotted, or do you usually drop it at a certain point when it starts to normalize and everyone's got all their boots and shit up?
I feel like whenever I'm supporting, I keep it, because generally you're buying wards and
you're very bored. You have the slots, of course.
Right. As you kind of move into cores, it's kind of depends on the hero. A lot of times, I pick it up, and usually when I pick it up on a core, it's almost every time I'm trying to build a Yules. Like for DP, I go Yules early, like every time. And like, well, as I say that, there are times when I go move in a different path, but generally,
when would you typically do that? When would you move in a different path than the Yules? Because that's a pretty good item to use on her, because you can pop that and the ghosts still go. So that's very good.
Yeah. And obviously the mana regen, she needs that. But I guess whenever I look at her, and if I'm like going up against an enemy team, it's one of those heroes I'm very comfortable with, and I understand a lot of the nuances too. And I challenge people when they have a hero like that to kind of play with their builds a little bit, because that's what I do as a player. I always am trying to look for a new way to get something done. I believe I've talked about it in the past. I think on the Wednesday show, like I would build a Necro book at one point on one game, because I needed the health one. I needed to be able to see like an enemy Ricky, and it still helped me push. So there's like certain things that like I can do by picking up an item like that, whereas I wouldn't get that same utility with Yules. And if a Ricky decided to gank me, I would Yules myself up, but smoke lasts long enough that I would still be in trouble.
Yeah, that's good thinking. Solid on my couldn't you do both though? I mean,
oh, you could, but it depends on the time of what you're wanting to do. I eventually did go Yules, but I wanted to go the Necro book first.
Yeah, it's just I see what you're saying. Instead of focusing that on the early regen and getting that up, you just get the Necro first. And that's cool. I never thought about that, and I don't think I've seen that. So that's some of that freaky deaky flub shit that we've been hearing about, right? I don't know. You have a lot of interesting ideas in the game, but it's typically founded in logic. And that's interesting because I think you really need to think about each part of your item builds. And you can go and study Dota buff and everything all day, and it's great to have research and backing stuff like that. But at the same time, you need to be able to say, this is good for this reason. I'm going to try it out and get my own results. And so that's a good example of that. Although you would pick up the Yules later. It's just very, very good on her naturally. But moving on, late game, what other options do we have? I mean, the most stacked you can get is like 3 items, I guess, 4 items for movement speed. What else gives movement speed beside the Yasha, the Windlace, the drums, and the Yules? Anything?
Well, obviously boots, but right. I know you probably didn't count those for a reason.
Yeah, and the highest boots you can get for movement speed is the travels, right?
Right. So, and it actually, I think whenever it TPs in, do you get like I'm pretty sure you get a bonus movement speed still. Or,
let me double it's not intrinsically listed on the item, so maybe it's just not intrinsically, but it's just not listed on the item intrinsically. No,
yeah, it just gives you the 100% move speed, or not 100%, the 100 plus, which is 100
pretty good. I mean, like, still granted it's a 2,400 gold item, but yeah. Looking at it here, like, I don't know, travels, I feel like we could do an entire episode on, but to nutshell it, you want to be picking up travels on heroes I play typically when you have the move speed or the attack speed to compensate for losing your treads. Like, I can name Sven here, and it's like you can really make yourself way less tanky and have less attack speed and everything else by selling your boots too early. And that's why you'll see some players hang on to their treads even after they have travels, because they'll just have that slot for the travels and they'll hold on to that until they can get, an AC or something that gives them further attack speed and some more tank. I think that's an interesting late game distinction, and I have lost games that way where I just like sold the treads to get the travels, and then like you all of a sudden you lack the oomph to like push and they just wreck through you. Little things like that can be hugely punishing. You can lose games based upon that, not being fast enough, not having enough armor, not all this other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many factors that go into winning a game. It feels like all of these items have complicated those factors, but at the same time, they're complications I'm glad to have, I suppose.
Oh yeah, me too. I think that the idea of all these items is essential to the game, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But I feel like, without mentioning the different type of boots, like, yeah, you mentioned, we've mentioned treads and phase and TP boots, but Tranquils is one that is something I always consider talking about whenever I talk about movement speed. It's the reason why supports get it. It's obviously so that they have a way to have great regen without like going back to base and being able to contribute. Because generally they're a bunch of intelligence casters, and all you need to do is get Tranquils and have the ability to get mana, whether you're like Lion or Lich or something, or just like carry an infused rain drop and a couple clarities, and that is like the main reason why people do it. But the other reason is because of that initial move speed for ganking coming in out of nowhere. Having that 85 move speed, extra move speed is killer. A lot of people don't really consider what that truly means at lower levels, I feel like. And sometimes at even at higher levels, people will look at the item and they'll say, we want mana boots. And you don't really need mana because you'll have a CM, or you'll have 3 other people that are going mana boots that are cores. Like, you'll have a Zeus on your team or something, and they opt out of trying to go the smart path instead of going what's like tried and true on that hero. Like, they'll go as a Rubik, and they'll pick up mana boots when they really didn't need mana boots because the rest of the team is going mana boots. And if they would have just picked up the tranquil boots, giving themselves that movement speed, that extra pull on coming out of smoke, being able to lift them up that much sooner, it can decide a team fight. It really can. Something as simple as that. And it's important to see that, and it's important to plan ahead with your team what you're going to do with movement speed for sure.
There is a lot of micro and macro wisdom there for movement speed in general. I think you summed it up very well. It 100% makes sense to think of it that way. I mean, just like any other type of number in the game, they're all equally important, but you can have an advantage in that area from the early game throughout the end. And you're right, as it goes on, you can lose a team fight through that. Because what if the Rubik, for instance, can just blink and then run up and lift you, and then their team gets a pick off and just rolls onto you, and that's it. The game's over if they're in a good position to take the game and you don't have buybacks. So that's a pretty good discussion on movement speed for the most part. We hit all the points I wanted to hit. I enjoyed having that conversation. Learned a lot as always, Flubb. Thanks for having it. Do you have anything else to add before we move on?
No, it's okay. We explained a lot about movement speed. I think the viewers can understand where we're coming from.
Yeah, and so this is going to lead directly into our conversation on the item of the week that you guys polled and participated in, and that is for the Manta. I mean, it's an item we haven't mentioned purposefully on the show, but it's something the Yasha builds into directly. The movement speed is inherent by that point in the item, and it does a lot of interesting things, and you see it a ton. So I'm sure that's why you guys selected it. It's an item I do build quite a bit on many heroes. I enjoy it. It gives the same effect as that Yule's with the cleansing, right? Because you can have any status effect, at least silences, and you can come out of it. I don't know about poison and shit like that. How does that work?
So it depends on what the true poison is. For things there's Venomancer's poison that his auto attack poison, it'll get rid of that. But his ultimate is a true poison that you can't really get rid of. Once it's on you, it stays on you. You can't really purge it off. But there's all the purgeable things that you can purge off your body. It does work versus them.
So that's pretty good. I mean, it's like the fighter's Yules in a weird way. And it gives you multiple clones, two guys that have gotten a little worse with the recent nerfs to illusions. They're just trying kind of nerfing them into the ground against buildings. They don't like that drow push strat with the Shadow Demon, apparently. But it's an item that's very good for heroes like Anti-Mage, etc. because the second you get locked down, if you have just a split second to hit that item, you can then blink out. And great against silences and all that other stuff. What heroes would you pick it up that isn't a carry, though, Flubb? Do you know any?
It's a good question. There's some offlaners, but that's going into a carry offlaner type situation. Faceless Void is actually a pretty decent one to go on to cancel out silences.
And you can pop them for the point of if someone wants to silence you or disable you, you can pop the Manta in the Chrono to disjoint, hopefully. There's a lot you can do on Faceless. That's a great example.
Right. There's also a couple other very same vein type of heroes that you can go down with that mentality. But in general, it is a carry item, and it's used as such. You kind of touched on it with Anti-Mage, how you use it to use it to get away, to be able to blink away, taking away silences, taking away different effects on your hero. But it's also used in ways that amplify whatever the hero is able to do. And obviously Anti-Mage uses his illusions to do mana drain. It's the most popular item for him, and that's why just triples up the mana drain, which is basically almost triples his damage with Mana Void. So,
which is exactly what you want to do. It's just that's always built on anti. There's never a game that it's not. It feels like at least there hasn't been for a while.
Right. And now people are even taking it to the next step too. Generally, people use it for pushing towers at this point because they actually do pretty decent amount of damage to towers. So people took it one step further. I'm not going to quote the team who made this popular, but because I'm probably going to say the wrong team. But there's a team that go to sound a Centaur strat, and they took Centaur and they put Heart on him and Vanguard, and then he goes Manta, and the skill build, I mean the item build goes a little bit differently sometimes depending on the teams, but generally it's like Heart and some other like tanky item with Manta, and they just like make Manta illusions and they put the illusions on the tower so that when they attack the illusions it does the return damage, and towers just kill themselves on illusions.
That is really freaky and dirty.
Yeah, and
you weren't kidding when you said you were freaky.
Yeah, it's insane, man. Like we've run it a couple times on Hakuna Marana, and it's been pretty effective. It's really, really deadly.
Interesting. Well, that's a whole other class of heroes that I didn't even think about. But offlaner, yeah, it's something you see built. I just wanted to give kind of the quick background. Manta style, an axe made of reflective materials that causes confusion among enemy ranks. The cost is $49.50. The bonus stats on it, which does give pretty good stats as well, is 10 strength, 26 agi, 10 int, 15 attack speed, and plus 10% movement speed because of that Yasha. The items that go into it, of course, are the Ultimate Orb, Yasha, and a recipe. And so I think it's kind of interesting that the Wind Lace wasn't used in this as well, because it seems like it could be something that could maybe go in that slot. Maybe that's just too cheap for the recipe, but I mean, you could supplement another item or something, like Slippers of Agility or something. I don't know, Poor Man's Shield, whatever. But it's not. This is like one of the few items, it feels like, that are in this mid-game type tier that give movement speed that do not use the Wind Lace, which kind of surprised me, I guess. But what else do you have to add about this item, Flubb? I think we've kind of covered who would build and buy it. You, of course, like, it has real limited applicability for other heroes that aren't carries in a weird way. You know what I mean? Like, it's not cost effective when you can just get a more single target type option like the Yules, but it is something that can be incredibly good for those agi heroes that like to escape, and apparently Centaur. So that's going to wrap up our discussion on the Manta. For next week, we actually got a tweet in from a very special fan and a man close to my heart, and that's someone I'd like to thank, and that's our sound engineer, Tom. He tweeted into us that he would like to hear us talk about the Tome of Knowledge. And this is another one of those interesting games that just are items that just came into the game recently that you never would have thought about it before. So we're just going to probably do that item next week and get a new poll going, just because it's an interesting thing and we'd like to base an episode around it. So look for another poll next week. As for next week, we will be doing the Tome of Knowledge and having a more experience-based talk, what it means to stay within experience range and all that entails. So be looking out for that. Flubb, do you have anything else to add before I close us out?
No, I think we're good. Maybe the only thing I would add is that when you're looking at Yasha, the reason that people are trying to kind of like move out from it is that, I mean, obviously it gives you a lot of agility, and it helps the right clickers that add that bonus without like having something crucial to their hero. So like obviously it even though Ursa's an agility hero, it wouldn't actually work on his like fury swipes. So if there's some reason that like it boosts the hero in general, or you're able to like manipulate the item, that's what it's good for. But basically you want to stay down the path of, are you agility? Do you need the ability to one farm or to use it to stay alive? So
yep, I couldn't agree more. That is a good way to nutshell that. So once again, guys, thank you for joining us here at Tryhard Tuesdays with the .P Network. I am your host, the Grand Wazoo, and sitting here with me is none other than Flubb. Flubb, why don't you tell everyone where they can reach you?
Well, everyone can reach me at my Twitter handle, at FlubbDota, with 2 Bs. The thing is, every week I always say that you can catch me on Wednesdays at the in-houses. Sadly, our team had to switch up our schedules, so I will not be attending those for the foreseeable future, unless I get like a night off from practice. So sadly, I'll have to miss out on that. But I still encourage everyone to go out there and try to get themselves involved with our community, because there's a lot of great people there that can play multiple different skill levels, and it's just a lot of fun. So.
Come on out to those. Those are a lot of fun. It's great to get involved with the community. You can watch the stream on our Twitch at .ptv. Check out the YouTube reviews that Fafnir's been doing. It's just various YouTube reviews from players like Roland and other such players where he analyzes it. It's really valuable content. I would definitely check that out. Wanted to thank Tom Juice, our sound engineer, for all the great work he's been doing for us. I've never felt or sounded more clear in all my life. Check out our overall Twitter at .p_show. Check out mine at .p_wazoo. Engage with us. Keep looking for those polls. We'll have another one coming to you next week when we get a good set of items that we can throw up there. Those have been a lot of fun for us. And just engage with us in general. Engage with the community. That's what it's there for. And like Flubb said, there are a lot of really great people. So I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. And guys, once again, thank you for joining us. And remember, you stay hard and stay classy.